A man cannot be insulted by that which he does not value. These were not the exact words of the great Stoic philosophers, but they capture the essence of their teachings. Imagine a moment of disrespect. Someone mocks you, belittles your efforts, or dismisses your presence. What is your reaction? Do you burn with anger? Do you retaliate? Or do you remain unshaken, as a mountain before the wind? Let me take you on a journey of the Stoic way that will help you master disrespect with the strength of an unshaken soul. Control your perception, and you control your experience. Imagine walking down the street when someone suddenly insults you. Their words are harsh, their tone filled with contempt. Now pause for a moment. What happens next is entirely up to you. The insult itself is nothing more than a string of sounds, a movement of air through the speaker's mouth. It carries no inherent power, but the moment you assign meaning to it, the moment you take it personally, you allow it to affect you. If you believe the words to be true, you may feel hurt. If you believe them to be false but still take offense, you have allowed someone else's judgment to disturb your peace. But if you recognize that an insult is nothing more than an opinion, one that has no bearing on your true character, then you remain untouchable. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic philosophers, taught that it is not external events that trouble us, but our interpretation of them. If you choose to see an insult as insignificant, it loses its sting. No one has the power to upset you, unless you grant them that power. Ask yourself, why should another person's careless words dictate my emotions? Why should I let their judgment determine my self-worth? If a child called you a ridiculous name, you would likely laugh and dismiss it. Why then should the insults of an adult be taken any more seriously, especially when they come from ignorance or malice? This mindset is not about denying reality or pretending disrespect does not exist. Rather, it is about recognizing that you alone decide what affects your inner state. A Stoic does not ignore the world, but he chooses how to engage with it. When you train yourself to see insults as empty noise, as the mere expressions of another person's thoughts, rather than reflections of your own truth, you become immune to their harm. Like a rock in the ocean, you remain steady as the waves crash around you, and in that steadiness, you find true freedom, the ability to walk through life unaffected by the fleeting opinions of others. Mastering your emotions is one of the greatest challenges a person can face, but it is also one of the most powerful skills a Stoic can develop. When someone disrespects you, your immediate reaction may be anger, frustration, or even sadness. This is natural. After all, we are human. But the Stoic knows that just because an emotion arises does not mean it must be obeyed. The key to emotional mastery is learning to observe your feelings without being controlled by them. Instead of reacting impulsively, take a moment to pause, recognize the anger or hurt bubbling up inside you, but do not let it dictate your next action. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, warned that giving in to anger is like allowing a wild beast to take over your mind. Anger clouds judgment, weakens reason, and leads to regretful actions. When you react emotionally to disrespect, you hand over your power to the very person who insulted you. They have provoked you, and now they control your response. But if you remain calm, you prove that their words hold no sway over you. Your peace of mind remains intact, and you walk away with dignity. This does not mean suppressing your emotions or pretending they don't exist. Suppression only builds resentment, making it harder to remain calm in future situations. Instead, a Stoic acknowledges emotions as temporary visitors, observes them with detachment, and lets them pass. Think of a fire. If you add fuel to it, it grows stronger. But if you stop feeding it, it slowly burns out. Likewise, if you dwell on an insult, replaying it in your mind, your anger grows. But if you refuse to engage with it, the fire dies out, leaving you in a state of inner peace. One powerful way to master your emotions is through self-reflection. Ask yourself, why does this person's words anger me? What am I afraid of? Often anger is a sign of insecurity, an unconscious belief that we must defend our worth. But true confidence requires no defense. If you know your value, why let another person's opinion shake you? When you reach this level of emotional mastery, disrespect becomes irrelevant. You are no longer a slave to the reactions of the moment. Instead, you rise above them, choosing reason over impulse and strength over weakness. In the end, the ability to remain calm in the face of provocation is not just a sign of self-control, it is a sign of true power. The person who can master their emotions is untouchable, free from the control of others, and at peace with themselves. This is the goal of Stoicism, not to suppress, not to ignore, but to master. And in mastery, we find freedom. Choosing indifference is one of the most powerful ways to handle disrespect. It does not mean ignoring everything or becoming emotionally numb, but rather, it is about consciously deciding what deserves your attention and what does not. In life you will encounter people who seek to provoke you, some out of ignorance, some out of malice, and some simply because they are unhappy with themselves. A Stoic understands that external events, including the words and opinions of others, are outside their control. What is within their control is how they choose to respond. If you allow yourself to be bothered by every slight, every insult, and every moment of disrespect, you become a puppet whose strings are pulled by others. But if you train yourself to be indifferent to such things, you become untouchable. Marcus Aurelius, the great Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, advised, choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been. This means that no insult, no rude remark, no act of disrespect can truly harm you unless you decide that it does. Imagine someone calls you weak, foolish, or insignificant. If you know yourself, if you are secure in your character, why should those words matter? They do not change who you are. They do not diminish your strength, wisdom, or value. They are simply noise, passing through the air like the wind. A useful way to cultivate indifference is to compare insults to a barking dog. If a dog barks at you while you walk past, do you stop and argue with it? Do you feel the need to correct the dog or defend yourself? Of course not. You recognize that the barking has nothing to do with you. It is simply the nature of the dog. The same is true for people who are quick to insult or disrespect others. Their words are often a reflection of their own inner struggles, their own lack of wisdom, rather than a true assessment of your worth. Choosing indifference does not mean tolerating abuse or allowing others to mistreat you. It means refusing to give negative energy more attention than it deserves. If disrespect comes from someone unimportant, why waste your peace on it? And if it comes from someone close to you, then it is an opportunity for either self-reflection or a calm discussion, not an emotional reaction. When you master the art of indifference, you gain freedom from the opinions of others. You move through life with a quiet strength, unshaken by the trivialities of human conflict. This is true power, not dominance over others, but mastery over oneself. Responding rather than reacting is a fundamental principle of Stoicism, and it is one of the greatest signs of wisdom and self-mastery. When faced with disrespect, the natural human tendency is to react instantly, often with anger, frustration, or defensiveness. This reaction is emotional, impulsive, and usually unwise. A reaction is immediate and uncontrolled, driven by feelings rather than reason. A response, on the other hand, is deliberate, measured, and rooted in rational thinking. The difference between reacting and responding is the difference between being a slave to your emotions and being the master of your mind. Imagine someone insults you in front of others. Your instincts might push you to lash out, to insult them back, or to defend yourself aggressively. But before you act, pause. That pause, however brief, is where your power lies. In that moment, ask yourself, does this deserve my energy? Will responding with anger benefit me? Is this person even worth my attention? A Stoic understands that responding wisely requires self-control, and self-control is what separates the strong from the weak. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, warned that when we react emotionally, we allow others to dictate our behavior. The person who insulted you has now gained control over your mood, your words, and possibly even your actions. Is that the power you want to give them? Instead, if you take a deep breath and respond calmly, or choose not to respond at all, you remain in command of yourself. No one can force you to react in anger unless you permit it. One way to cultivate this mindset is to view every instance of disrespect as a test of your composure. If someone is rude to you, see it as an opportunity to practice patience. If someone belittles you, see it as a chance to prove to yourself that their words have no hold over you. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, reminded himself daily that he would encounter rude, arrogant, and ignorant people, but that it was his choice whether or not to be disturbed by them. He understood that the actions of others are beyond his control, but his response is entirely within his power. Choosing to respond rather than react also allows you to maintain your dignity. When you react emotionally, you often regret it later, but when you respond with thoughtfulness, you keep your integrity intact. Sometimes the best response is no response at all. Silence can be the most powerful reply to foolishness. Other times, a calm and rational response can disarm an aggressor, showing them that you are not easily provoked. By mastering the ability to respond rather than react, you set yourself apart from those who are ruled by their emotions. You become a person of wisdom and strength, someone who commands respect, not through force but through composure. In a world filled with chaos and impulsivity, the one who remains calm is the one who truly holds power. When faced with disrespect, one of the most effective ways to maintain your composure is to consider the source. Not all opinions are worth your attention, and not all insults deserve a reaction. The Stoic approach to handling disrespect begins with a simple question: who is speaking, and do they deserve my concern? By evaluating the source of the insult, you gain clarity on whether it is something you should truly take to heart, or something you should simply dismiss. If the person insulting you is ignorant, why let their words trouble you? Their opinion is not rooted in wisdom or truth, so why grant it power? If a child called you foolish, would you be offended? Likely not, because you understand that the child lacks experience and knowledge. The same principle applies to adults who behave childishly, those who speak from anger, insecurity, or ignorance. Their words reveal more about them than they do about you. To take them seriously would be to place value on a judgment that is not worth considering. On the other hand, if a wise and virtuous person offers criticism, even if it comes across as harsh, it might be worth examining. Sometimes what feels like disrespect is actually an opportunity for self-improvement. Socrates famously said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." A Stoic does not automatically dismiss all criticism, but evaluates whether it has merit. If a respected mentor or an honest friend points out a flaw in your behavior, it may be a chance for growth rather than a reason for offense. The key is discernment, knowing when to ignore and when to reflect. Seneca warned that people often insult others not because they seek truth, but because they are ruled by their own weaknesses. A person who is unhappy with themselves may lash out at others to feel superior. A person who lacks self-control may insult others impulsively. Recognizing this allows you to detach from their words. Why be troubled by the opinion of someone who is not even in control of their own emotions? Why feel hurt by the words of someone who speaks from a place of personal struggle? Instead of letting their disrespect provoke you, view it with pity rather than anger. Their actions reflect their inner turmoil, not your worth. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that other people's opinions do not define us. If someone calls you incompetent, but you know you are skilled, their words do not change reality. If someone calls you weak but you know you possess inner strength, their insult is meaningless. Only your own judgment of yourself matters, and that judgment should be based on reason, not the fleeting words of others. Considering the source helps you rise above petty conflicts. It teaches you that most insults are not worth engaging with, and that true wisdom lies in choosing what deserves your attention. A Stoic does not react to every voice that speaks against them, only the voices that carry truth. And in that ability to discern, one finds both freedom and strength. Focusing on your own virtue is the ultimate defense against disrespect, because it shifts your attention away from external judgments and onto what truly matters, your character. A Stoic understands that they cannot control the opinions or actions of others, but they can always control their own thoughts, words, and behaviors. When you build your life around virtue, around wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline, no insult or act of disrespect can truly harm you. The words of others do not define your worth, only your actions and principles do. Imagine walking through a storm. The wind howls, the rain pours, and the world around you is in chaos. But if you have built a strong shelter, the storm cannot harm you. Your virtue is that shelter. It protects you from the storms of life, including the words and opinions of others. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, reminded himself daily that he would encounter people who were rude, dishonest, and disrespectful. Yet, he did not allow their actions to dictate his own. He wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." This means that no matter how others behave, your duty is to remain true to your values. If someone insults you, responding with anger or cruelty only brings you down to their level. Instead, rise above it by maintaining your integrity. Focusing on your own virtue also means refusing to seek validation from others. Many people become upset by disrespect because they crave approval. They want to be liked, admired, or seen as important. But Stoicism teaches that external validation is fleeting and unreliable. One day, people may praise you, the next day they may criticize you. If your self-worth depends on the opinions of others, you will always be at their mercy. True confidence comes from knowing that you are living according to your principles, regardless of what others say. Ask yourself, am I acting with honesty? Am I showing patience? Am I staying disciplined in my actions? If you can answer yes, then the opinions of others become irrelevant. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, advised that a wise person should aim to be good, not to be praised. He wrote, "A good character, once established, is not at the mercy of fortune." This means that if you build your life around virtue, no insult, no act of disrespect, and no change in circumstance can shake your foundation. You do not need to prove yourself to anyone, because your character speaks for itself. Another advantage of focusing on virtue is that it frees you from resentment. Many people hold on to anger after being disrespected, replaying the moment in their minds and feeling bitterness toward the person who wronged them. But resentment poisons the soul and distracts from what truly matters. A Stoic understands that every moment spent dwelling on an insult is a moment wasted, time that could have been used for growth, self-improvement, or meaningful action. Instead of obsessing over how someone mistreated you, focus on being the best version of yourself. Let your actions, not your emotions, define you. When you prioritize virtue, you naturally develop a sense of inner peace. The world may be chaotic, people may be unkind, and disrespect may come your way, but none of it can touch you if you remain rooted in your values. No external insult can take away your honesty, your patience, your courage, or your wisdom. And in the end, it is these qualities, not the fleeting opinions of others, that determine the strength of your character. Use disrespect as a test of your self-control, your patience, and your commitment to Stoic principles. Every time someone insults you, dismisses you, or treats you unfairly, you are given an opportunity to strengthen your character. Instead of seeing these moments as attacks, see them as training. Just as a warrior sharpens his sword through practice, and a philosopher refines his mind through study, you can use moments of disrespect as a way to fortify your inner strength. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This means that every challenge, every difficulty you face, can be turned into an opportunity for growth. If someone disrespects you, rather than reacting with frustration, ask yourself, how can I use this to become better? Can I become more patient, more resilient, more disciplined? If you see every insult as a test, you begin to welcome these moments, knowing they are shaping you into a stronger, wiser person. Think of an athlete training for a competition. They do not avoid difficulty, they seek it. They lift heavier weights, push through exhaustion, and embrace discomfort because they know that struggle makes them stronger. The same applies to the mind. If you only encounter kindness and respect, you never have the chance to develop resilience. But when you face disrespect and remain unmoved, you prove to yourself that you are in control. You pass the test. Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, often reminded his students that life itself is like a training ground. He said, "Difficulties are things that show what men are." Anyone can remain calm when things are going well, but the true measure of a person is how they respond under pressure. When you are insulted or treated unfairly, do you let emotions take over, or do you stay composed? Every time you choose patience over anger, every time you remain indifferent to an insult, you are strengthening your mind. It is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. A useful practice is to mentally prepare yourself for moments of disrespect. Each morning remind yourself that you may encounter rudeness, arrogance, or unfair treatment during the day. But also remind yourself that these are not problems, they are opportunities. Instead of dreading them, embrace them as part of your training. When the moment comes, and someone speaks harshly to you, pause. In that moment, remember, this is my test. This is my chance to grow. If you stay calm, you have succeeded. If you let anger take over, learn from it and try again next time. Over time, you will find that disrespect no longer bothers you the way it once did. You will become more resilient, more unshakable, more at peace. The very thing that once disturbed you will now serve as a tool for your personal development. In this way, nothing is wasted. Even adversity becomes a stepping stone toward wisdom. By using disrespect as a test, you transform what was meant to harm you into something that makes you stronger. Reflect, but do not dwell. This is the Stoic approach to handling disrespect. It is natural to feel something when you are insulted or treated unfairly. After all, you are human. But the difference between a Stoic and someone ruled by their emotions is what happens after the moment has passed. Do you let it consume you? Do you replay the insult in your mind over and over, feeding your anger and resentment? Or do you briefly reflect, take any wisdom from the experience, and then let it go? Reflection is important because it allows you to learn. If someone disrespects you, take a moment to ask yourself, is there any truth in their words? Did I act in a way that may have contributed to this situation? A Stoic is not so proud that they dismiss all criticism outright. Sometimes what feels like disrespect is actually constructive feedback. Even if it is delivered harshly, there may be something valuable to take from it. Marcus Aurelius advised, "If anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change. It's the truth I'm after." This means that reflection is a tool for growth. If someone points out a flaw in you, even in a rude way, consider whether there is something to improve. If there is, use it as an opportunity to become better. However, once you have reflected, let the moment pass. Do not dwell. Dwelling on disrespect keeps you trapped in the past, reliving the moment and allowing it to drain your energy. Ask yourself, does thinking about this over and over help me in any way? Does it change what happened? The answer is always no. The more you replay an insult in your mind, the more power you give it. It is like holding on to a burning coal. It does nothing but harm you. A Stoic understands that the past cannot be changed, but the present can always be controlled. Choose to move forward. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This is especially true when it comes to disrespect. Often the event itself lasted only a few seconds, but we suffer for hours or even days afterward, because we refuse to let it go. The Stoic approach is simple: acknowledge what happened, take any useful lesson from it, and then release it. Shift your focus to something productive. Engage in your work, your studies, or your personal growth. Fill your mind with things that strengthen you, not things that weigh you down. One way to practice this is by using a mental reset. When you catch yourself dwelling on an insult, take a deep breath and remind yourself, this moment is gone. It no longer exists. I choose to move forward. By making this a habit, you train your mind to detach from negativity more quickly. Over time, you will find that disrespect no longer lingers in your thoughts. It simply passes through, leaving you untouched. Reflect, but do not dwell. Learn but do not obsess. This is the way of the Stoic. By mastering this practice, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering and gain true peace of mind. Rising above pettiness is a mark of true strength and wisdom. When faced with disrespect, the instinctive reaction for many people is to respond in kind, to trade insult for insult, to engage in petty arguments, or to seek revenge. But this only drags you down to the level of those who wronged you. A Stoic understands that dignity is not found in proving others wrong, nor in winning every conflict, but in maintaining composure and staying true to one's principles. Petty disputes are everywhere in life, at work, in relationships, on social media, and even among friends. People argue over trivial matters, hold grudges over small offenses, and waste energy on meaningless conflicts. But ask yourself, will this matter in a day, a week, a year? Most of the time, the answer is no. What then is the point of engaging in such trivial battles? Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, reminded himself daily that he would encounter people who were rude, selfish, and ignorant. But instead of lowering himself to their level, he chose to stay focused on his own path. He wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never any need to get worked up, or to trouble your soul about things you can't control." This is key. Most petty conflicts are not worth your energy. If an insult does not impact your true character, why let it disturb your peace? Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, warned against being easily offended. He believed that taking everything personally was a sign of weakness, not strength. He advised, "A great mind is not disturbed by injury. It is too great for that. A small mind is hurt by small things." This means that true power comes from emotional resilience. A Stoic does not let minor slights disrupt their inner stability. Instead, they acknowledge them, dismiss them, and move forward. Think of a towering mountain. No matter how strong the wind blows against it, the mountain does not move. It remains solid, unmoved by the forces around it. This is how a Stoic should handle pettiness. When others act disrespectfully, see it as noise, background distractions that do not deserve your attention. The person who is easily provoked is like a leaf in the wind, tossed around by every insult and argument. The person who rises above pettiness, however, is like the mountain, strong, steady, and unshaken. One way to practice this is through perspective. When faced with pettiness, remind yourself, I have a higher purpose. I will not waste my time on meaningless disputes. This mindset shifts your focus away from small conflicts and toward greater goals. Instead of arguing with someone who disrespects you, invest your energy in your growth, your work, and your character. Nothing frustrates a petty person more than seeing you remain unaffected by their attempts to provoke you. Another powerful approach is humor. Sometimes the best way to rise above pettiness is to simply laugh at it, not in a mocking way, but in a way that reminds you not to take trivial things too seriously. Many great philosophers and leaders understood that humor can be a tool for perspective. When you can smile at an insult rather than feel anger, you prove that it holds no power over you. Rising above pettiness is not about letting others walk over you. It is about choosing your battles wisely. Some conflicts are worth engaging in, especially when they involve justice or principles, but most of the time petty disputes serve no purpose other than to drain your energy. A Stoic knows when to stand firm and when to simply walk away with dignity intact. By mastering this mindset, you elevate yourself above the chaos of trivial conflicts and move through life with unshakable peace. Leading by example is one of the most powerful ways to handle disrespect with Stoic wisdom. Instead of engaging in arguments or trying to force others to respect you, simply embody the virtues you wish to see in the world. Actions speak louder than words, and the way you conduct yourself in the face of disrespect will leave a stronger impression than any response fueled by anger or ego. People often mirror the behavior they see in others. If someone insults you and you respond with aggression, you reinforce the cycle of negativity. But if you respond with patience, dignity, and composure, you set a higher standard. Over time, those around you may begin to respect you, not because you demanded it, but because you demonstrated a level of self-control and wisdom that they admire. This is why Marcus Aurelius, one of history's greatest Stoic leaders, emphasized self-mastery above all else. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one. Instead of wasting energy debating how people should behave, simply live the example yourself." One of the best ways to lead by example is through emotional discipline. Many people react impulsively to disrespect, allowing anger to dictate their response. But a Stoic recognizes that emotions are fleeting and should not control behavior. If someone speaks to you harshly, you do not have to mirror their hostility. Instead, you can remain calm, choosing to respond with reason rather than emotion. This does not mean allowing yourself to be mistreated. It means demonstrating that true strength comes from self-control, not aggression. Seneca put it best when he said, "To be provoked by an insult is to acknowledge it as deserved." When you remain unaffected, you show that the insult holds no truth and that you are above petty conflicts. Leading by example also means treating others with the respect that you wish to receive. Even when you are disrespected, a Stoic does not lower themselves to the level of those who act rudely. Instead, they continue to act with integrity, proving that their character is not dependent on the behavior of others. This approach is powerful because it disarms those who seek to provoke you. If someone expects an argument, but instead meets a calm and thoughtful response, they may be forced to reconsider their own behavior. Over time, they may even learn from your example. Furthermore, leadership through example is not just about handling direct disrespect, it is about setting a precedent in every aspect of life. Whether in the workplace, among friends, or within your community, the way you carry yourself influences those around you. If you approach challenges with patience, if you handle criticism with humility, and if you treat others with fairness, people will take notice. They may not always admit it, but many will respect you for your consistency and strength. Another important aspect of leading by example is focusing on long-term impact rather than short-term validation. It is easy to win an argument in the moment, but what truly matters is the lasting impression you leave. A person who argues their way to victory may gain temporary satisfaction, but a person who remains composed in the face of adversity earns long-term respect. The goal is not to win interactions, but to cultivate a presence that commands respect without demanding it. The Stoic approach is simple: do not tell others how they should behave, show them. When you remain calm under pressure, when you refuse to be drawn into petty disputes, when you consistently choose wisdom over impulse, you set an example that speaks louder than words. Over time, this quiet strength will do more to earn respect than any argument ever could. By leading by example, You prove that dignity, patience and virtue are the strongest responses to disrespect. In the end, how you handle disrespect is not about others, it is about you. Every insult, every slight, every unfair word is an opportunity to rise above, to strengthen your character, and to prove to yourself, not to them, that you are in control. The world will always have its share of rude, petty and thoughtless people, but their behavior does not define you. What defines you is how you respond. Choose patience over anger. Choose wisdom over impulse. Choose to lead by example, to stay focused on your virtue, and to use every challenge as a test to make you stronger. When you refuse to be shaken by disrespect, you become untouchable, not because the world changes, but because you have mastered yourself, and in that mastery lies true power.